Hello everyone, Phoenix61 here. We are talking pieces of 8 today, right? So, let's do this. Okay, so strategy is not too much different than from last season, what we started off with sort of towards the beginning of the season, right? We're probably like a week or two-ish into the season when I made this video. So we are in the Helm office here, right? And we'll kind of give a quick just overview. You can see we've already collected several of the factories, right? And we even have some like full-on territories claimed as well, like these highlighted sections, right? Manufacturing defense popped up too, right as we started recording, so that's kind of nice. Those are definitely worth doing early on. Well, they're kind of always worth doing, right? But early on in the season, you get kind of double duty because you get a lot of infamy and like kingpin rank from, sinking ships during those, right? So I usually end up with several, smugglers tokens, right, from doing those. But to start off with, right, you may have some Helm leases from last season, right? So if you did well in the previous season, you'll have some Helm leases. I'll kind of show you which ones I picked, right? But hostile takeovers showed up as well. This location, you could tell I already have it just because it's right next to, a claimed factory already. But another way to do that is to see if one of the rewards is a raider cache, that means you already have that location. So for example, the buyout was for Grand Fort, and if you don't know where that particular one is, right, you can tell if you already have it by seeing what the reward would be, right? So this one here for Lara West Lumberyard, the only reward is silver, so that's another way to tell that I don't have that one and I need that one. So I'm actually going to do that one, and then there's also a buyout right next to it for a location that I do have. But what's nice when this happens, right, when you have buyouts, and sometimes a legendary heist is still sticking around too, right? So I went and did the hostile takeover, right? I just fast forwarded to the end just to kind of show you. But the buyouts, we did it quick enough so to where the buyouts are still available as well. So if you don't have a lot of factories claimed yet, this is a good way to get like 2 in a row, right? Like right as, because these only pop up every 30 minutes, right? So if you've got a buyout that also shows up at the same time, sometimes you can go do the hostile takeover and then also go and quick do the buyout, and then you get 2 factories for the price of 1, right? For the time consumption of 1, I guess, right? But I even still, for this location, I already have this. I have this location for this buyout already, but you still get a raider cache when you complete it, then, right? So, like I said, yeah, if the reward doesn't show a raider cache, then it means you still need that location. And if it does show a raider cache, it's always worth it, especially for the buyouts, to go and grab the raider cache, because sometimes there is a possibility of getting a Helm lease, as you can see in there, so then you would get to just choose a location later, right? But then you also get 8s and usually some decent rewards as well from those raider caches. So if you're heavy on materials, I almost always do one of the buyouts as well, right, if I can, right? So now we have Lara West Lumberyard from doing the takeover. I will rank it up a little bit here. I'm still struggling with, I'm trying to rank I'm trying to upgrade like all of these factories like all at once, and then also there's some things I want to spend 8s on, like upgrading the the battle junk, the new ship, like stuff like that, right? So my goal's been kind of to try to get them up to level 4 or 5 in particular, because that way you can assign fleet ships, right? You can assign ships to go and collect the 8s for you. So I've been that's been my goal, to try and get them up to 5, right? I have a massive fleet that we built from last season of just dedicated fleet ships, and I'll kind of show you how I, logically, what I did to build those, right? I'll go into that in a little bit too. And then, yep, just keeping them funded, right, until you get them up to level 10. It's usually, especially at these lower levels, they only fund for like, a few hours or so, right? Once you get them up to level 10, I think they fund for like a couple of days, right? So, yeah, so you just have to, early on, there's a little bit more micromanaging that you have to do, right? Which is like fine, because it's new season and I'm excited and I'm playing all the other content, right? So I'm in there anyway, right? And then, yeah, as you can see, so level 5, you can see basically the reason I'm choosing 5 is because the amount of 8s that the factory can hold is 1,000, right? And so you need it above that 600 mark because all my fleet ships are medium-sized ships and they only deliver 610, right? So otherwise, if you left it at 4, you can assign a ship, but it would have to be a small ship, right? As you can see, we're over where St. Anne is right now, and a lot of the factories around St. Anne I have leveled up to level 10 already. These are ones that I probably used my Helm leases on. I had several that carried over from last season, right? So you can, when you have Helm leases, you can just sail up to any factory and claim it. Fort Dulise in particular, because this one shows up in the liaison missions for doing plundering for Helm materials a lot, right? So I'm going to that location pretty frequently anyway, and same with Grand Fort as well, right? Like those Helm material missions show up pretty often for Grand Fort as well, and between Grand Fort and Fort Dulise, right, and then this other factory is just on the way back to the dock, right? So I'm swinging by it anyway, and same thing with Fort Dulise, and then this one here, right? I'm ending up at St. Anne anyway. So right, so those were two, Fort Dulise and Grand Fort are pretty easy plunders, even if you have to do them by yourself, right? So that's why I picked those. And then Fort Harima, right, if I'm saying that right, is right next to Talak Banjara, right, which is the St. Anne equivalent, but over in the East Indies, right? That's the den, the hideout, whatever. So that one also has Helm material, plunder missions showing up pretty often as well. So instead of trying to go in and figure out which factories are going to be the most profitable and going for those first, I honestly chose convenience over profit because it's way more convenient, right? In my mind, I'm going to be visiting those locations, doing the pickups more. It's easier while I'm doing other things, right? So I'm doing double duty, multitasking, right, by picking those locations. So those are the ones that I used my Helm leases on. And then of course, as you play through the Smuggler's Pass, and some other things have Helm leases as a reward as well. So if you didn't have any that, you got earned from completing things from last season, right, you will get some just from playing the game at some point. And then here you can see I've got, a ship that I can assign to this location because this has 764 pieces of 8 over on the right now. So I'm basically any of these ships that have the little industrial building icon up in the top right, those are ships that I've already assigned to a location. I think I have 32 or 33 ships that I'm running right now as fleet ships. And then I also renamed them, right, so that I don't confuse them with my regular daily ships that I actually play with. So they're all named Fleet and then a number, right? So I think I named them Fleet number 1, Fleet number 2, Fleet number 3, right? All the way up to 30, I think, is how many I have, right? So something just to keep in mind, a little bit strategy, help keep your ships organized. You do need, when you build out those ships, right, I just threw equipment on them, right, furniture pieces and weapons that I wasn't really using, and I'll go into that a little bit later too, but you kind of want most of those ships to be up in the level 11, level 12 ship ranks, right? You don't have to max them out, but yeah, this factory defense, I'm I'm running out of time. I gotta do that one. And then you can see we do have some of the territories fully claimed. That's why these sort of sections of the map are highlighted when we're looking at the the Helm view. And these they're not too much different from last season, right? They changed some of the bonuses and perks for collecting, having all the factories in a specific territory, and it's usually some sort of better production rate or more efficient something or cheaper silver cost, whatever. This one's kind of new. This says gives 500 silver bonus every hour. So that's kind of cool, right? Just free silver just for fun, I guess, right? And yeah, this one reduces funding cost in that faction's factories, right? So easy peasy. We'll fund these. So yeah, just keep them funded. And yeah, as you can see, right, this gets expensive if you were playing this, if you were doing, factories and pieces of 8 in the previous seasons, right? You know how expensive it gets when it comes to silver, right? So that'll be our next step, showing you how to earn plenty of silver to just take care of this and manage these, right? So I never have a problem with silver, and I think actually they've even sort of nerfed, right? They've lowered the cost, I think, from one season to the next. They've done it twice now, right? From season 1 into season 2, I think they dropped the cost of funding factories, and then now we're in season 3. I think they dropped them even more when I was looking at update notes, right? So so I went and did the defend, right? And so we're right at the end of it here. So I'm just finishing off these level 12 ships that showed up, right? So these can get pretty tough. So if you're struggling with these, I do have a couple of builds out there. This one in particular is a new ship loadout for this season, and I just did a video on this a couple days ago, or within the last few days, I think. So go check that out if you're struggling there. I also highly recommend the Sam book, right, with it's just a full-out fire build. I have some older videos from previous seasons using that. That works really, really well because it's just a really good crowd control ship, right? When you light ships on fire, they get set ablaze, and they do a fire explosion, and then anybody near them also gets lit on fire with the fire explosion then when you trigger that, right? So it's just this awesome chain reaction effect that happens when you run into waves of ships exactly like this. So Sandbook works really, really well for this as well. But this was just a new sort of ship build that I had been playing around with and trying to do some PvP stuff with as well, and it was working really, really well. So these are the new bombards, the 1,000-year monsoons that you buy from the bartender in St. Anne. So go check those out. You do need sovereigns for those, right? So this is a good video to be watching because to earn sovereigns, you need to earn pieces of 8, right? So as you collect pieces of 8, you get some more sovereigns, right? So as you can see, we're getting a production bonus on this now. It's basically just like you've done a supply run, right? But it's free. You don't actually have to supply the supplies, right? You just do the defend. And so it's up to 173 production per hour, but that only lasts 20 minutes, so it's not a huge deal. And then this factory is only level, what was it, 5, right? So once you get it maxed out, that multiplier, that percentage increase becomes even more, right? So all right, next step is earning silver, right? So you need plenty of silver to keep the factories up and running to earn 8s. So basically this is pretty simple, right? The best way to earn silver isn't doing missions or going up to shipwrecks and stuff like that. Those are kind of early on ways to earn silver. The best way to do it is to go to the supply network board and pick up these roving supply missions. I realize that it says that they cost silver, right? But these are for Helm materials, right? So you should see ones in here. I had already picked up the others, but you should see ones in there for Helm materials like poppy and sugar and berries and stuff like that, right? So those are what you want. The Imperial Jade Emeralds or whatever are just a new currency for the season. So those are worth having too. You could pick those up as well. And then if you're interested in doing the attacks, right, I recommend just picking, cherry picking the particular locations that you're comfortable with plundering. And Fort Dulise would probably be the easiest. That's super easy to do solo by yourself if you ever have to. And then I do Grand Fort pretty often too. This particular rogue hunt in this location is also a good one to pick up. Not this one, that one's in the middle, but yeah, here's Fort Dulise, right? So we talked about that. And then here's a Grand Fort one as well. That one's a little tougher, but I mean, you can always do the call for help. Usually there's other people wanting to farm Helm materials as well. So between those two, those are kind of my go-tos, right? And then this particular rogue hunt works as well, just because, and I'll show you in the map, you want to pick that specific one because it's right next to where the roving supply missions are, right? So here we can see the roving supply mission highlighted on the map here, and it's literally right next to this, fast travel location, Il Michael, right? If I'm saying that right, I'm sure I'm not. and then we'll go to the rogue hunt, and you can see it's literally in this almost in the same location, right? So you can kind of double duty, but in reality you can only hold 6 of these missions at a time. I would favor picking the roving supply deals first, just because you get way more materials out of that, and you can go up and kill the ship, right? So a lot of people, I still see a lot of people sailing up to the ship, spending the silver to trade for the helm supplies. Honestly, like, that's fine. You can do that if you don't like being marked by the helm. But in reality, like, if you've got a level 12 or 13 ship especially, like, I can't even tell, right? Like, I can't even tell when I'm wanted by the helm. There's just nothing significant that seems to, like, threaten me at all, right? So you get a little bit more materials for sinking the ship, and you get all, and it completes all 3, or however many, all 6 missions all at once. You can see all my materials popping up over on the right. So they're all getting dumped into my cargo hold. We're getting 180 instead of the, I think it was like 144 or something. That was that those missions were, that like they started out as, right? So it seemed like you were getting some more materials as well. That may have to do with some of the upgrades that I've already bought in the Helm office as well. But we'll go through those also towards the end of the video here as well. But so once you've got Helm materials, right, a lot of you veterans are already familiar with this, but you go into the distillery or the laboratory, which is over in the East Indies, and you build these, you craft these Helm products here, right? And they take a little bit of time, right? So Gold Skull Rum and Gold Skull Gin are ultimately the ones you want to craft to make silver, because you can sell them to Skurlock in St. Anne here, right? But in order to craft these, you need the White Skull Rum or the White Skull Gin, right? So I'm just going to literally max out however many White Skull Rum I can craft. I already have some Gold Skull Rum and Gold Skull Gin, right? But that's how that process sort of works. You craft the lower end material, then you can craft the higher end product, and then you go and sell it to Skurlock. Or if it's the, what is it, like the opium and the snuff or whatever, those products that you craft over in the East Indies at Talak Pinjara, right, in the laboratory, those you would sell to Admiral Rama over in the East Indies, right, the equivalent products over there. You don't want to sell those to Skurlock because you don't get as much money for them. So we'll go up to Skurlock and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about, and we'll sell some of the higher end products to him. Skip through his dialogue here, go into buy and sell, tab over to sell, and then on console it's Y or whatever your corresponding button is, right, to see what, to toggle to your warehouse, right, so you can sell directly from your warehouse. You used to not be able to do this, right? So here's the Gold Skull Rum. You can see that you'll get 250 silver per each one of these that you sell, and same for the Gold Skull Gin. So, and you see I have several thousand of them. It's because like these are materials are easy to get for these, and then once you've got Helm upgrades done, your production rates are really, really good with these. Like sometimes you can produce like 2 products for each item, right? So we sold what, 2,000 and got 500,000, right? So I still have several thousand left to spare. And then yeah, the Black Lotus opium and the silver snuff, those are the equivalents that you want to sell those to Admiral Rama over in the East Indies, right? So if you sell them to Skurlock, you're only getting half the amount of money you would get. You're only getting 125. If you sell them to Admiral Rama, you'll get 250 silver per item, right? So, and then yeah, Skurlock's got, Skurlock and Rama both have new things in here, specifically some blueprints for some higher end items that cost the like White Skull Rum, I think. So, you don't always want to trade everything up to the gold, to the highest level. And then he also sells Skurlock's Long Nines. And the reason I'm calling this out is because this is how I built out some of my fleet ships from last season, right? So now I have a bunch of fleet ships. But basically what you want to do is, if you're heavy on these materials, you can go in here and grab some Skurlock's Long Nines and put them on your fleet ships to kind of get their gear score, right? Their ranking up higher if you needed to. But yeah, so there's plenty of new blueprints in here. Those are really,
Keep your eyes wary.
I really like that what they're doing there, because they're specific for certain types of like play styles and builds, right? So I'm really enjoying the new furniture pieces that they have. And then we'll go over to the shipwright, and I'll kind of just touch really briefly on how I built out my fleet. So I have about 30 ships. I built all of the tank ships. I used the Snow, right? So, And the reason I picked the snow is because it seemed to have, this one here, the Vanguard snow, right? It seemed to have, you look over on the right, it seemed to be lower end materials that I pretty much always have plenty of those. So that's why I picked that. Some of the other ships have some of the higher end materials in order to craft the ship. And so I was like, well, no, I don't want to give up my higher end materials, right? These seemed to be the ones that I had the most of. I think the Bombardier, the other, like the like Sandbook, you need some like eels twine and stuff. Yeah, but the Bombardier, this one, may also be another decent choice for you too. As you can see, there's not, the materials list is less, but some of those materials I use more often, so I have less of them, right? Like the shellac, right? So you do you there, and then so what you do is you end up you craft one of the snows, right? And then you want to outfit it to try and get the rank up higher. So you can see here all these ones that are grayed out. These are ones that are assigned to a factory currently, right? And so you can see over on the right, I've got some Skurlock's Long Nines and then just some other random stuff that I happen to have. Just because I wanted to get that gear score up, the rank for the ship up to that 11 or 12 area. Because as you start assigning them to factories, there's sort of a recommended ship rank for that factory. And if you don't meet or exceed that recommended ship rank for that factory, it has a chance of like getting damaged, and then it'll stop doing deliveries for you, and you got to pay some silver to repair it. So it's not a big deal, and it doesn't happen every time, right? But then I think you lose some of the 8s as well in that process. So just something to sort of like keep in mind, right? So you can see, and I'll tab over to one of these too, but I'm kind of just looking through which, what's the best deal here. But most of the time I'm just picking whatever, per hour is producing me, the most 8s per hour. But yeah, when you go into a factory to assign a ship, which we can do on this one, you can see at the top here, we triggered over to where the ship is, and it says recommended ship rank 7, right? And then I renamed all of my, my cargo fleet ships, right? I named them fleet and then a number, like I said, and then if they're already assigned, they'll have that little industrial symbol up in the top right corner, right? That industrial building. And so if they're not grayed out, right, it means that ship's sitting idle at that location, and so you can just reassign it to the location that needs to get, that has enough 8s to do the run, right? Which is, if you're using medium-sized ships, it's 610. So that's why I've been kind of trying to get most of my factories up to at least a level 5, because then they can hold that amount and a little bit more, right? They can hold 1,000 at that point. And you can see this one has a recommended ship rank of 11. This one has an 11. I think these from last season, once you got them up to 10, the like recommended ship rank was like 13 or 14, right? Which I wasn't willing to, I didn't have an upgraded ship that I wanted to be doing automatic deliveries, right? So I just assigned level 12 ships to it, and then every once in a while I'd have to repair that ship, right? It didn't happen every time, but yeah, so that's kind of the strategy that I went for, right? So if you don't already have a little bit of a fleet built out, right, so that's how you can do it. My recommendation was, the snow, and build a bunch of those as you can, as you have supplies, right? And then here we'll talk about upgrades in a second too, but over on the left you can see, I don't care too much about like where I stand in the rankings, right? But you just want to try and get, for the season, you want to try to get to diamond, which I think is, what is that, 3 million or 300,000, right? So that's not too hard to get to, because then as you get up there, I think you get some weekly too, but as you get up there and progress through the rankings for collecting 8s, you get, the sovereigns, right? And those are really, really valuable. So smugglers operations and the upgrades, if you've played previous seasons, you probably have this all the way unlocked already, because this is the one that did not reset at all, right? So these are very, very valuable in earning silver, particularly because they have a lot of bonuses to like your production of the Helm products, right? So a lot of these in here like add a chance to like produce, two of the white skull rum per every 1 sugar instead of 1 to 1, right? So it's like basically that ends up, once you make all those products and then you go and sell them to Skurlock, you've got more than what you've got more rum than how many, sugars you put in. And, it works the same for all the other products too. Empire management, this is another one that you want to focus on early on, because in here, this is how you unlock the ability to be able to claim more of the factories. So I think when you first start out for the season, it'll only let you have like 10. So if you look over on the left side, you can see the number that says it has the little like industrial building by it. I have 54 of 76. So if you look at that and you see a smaller number for the second number, right, that's probably how many you can have, and you need to come in here to the Empire Management and do some of these upgrades. The last two are pretty pricey. They're in the like 10 to 11,000 pieces of 8 range. So you do kind of got to get some other factories going and get some collection processes going before you can actually do that, right? So I'm not sure what manufactory resilience means. My guess is that like they're stronger during defense. I'm not 100% sure on that. Really what I was doing for this one was trying to get to the end of it so that we could unlock all of the factories. So yeah, if you ever do like a hostile takeover, or your Helm lease doesn't work at a location, go in here and check and see, like, right, if you're not getting the factory claimed when you do the takeover, or the Helm lease doesn't work, go in here and check and make sure you buy those upgrades, and that'll let you own more factories. Ship management, I haven't put anything into this one yet. I've kind of given it a lower priority, but it looks like basically just a general, like boost to like profits and ship capacity and stuff like that. So I think once I get through, now that I'm starting to unlock more and more factories, I'll probably start focusing on that one next, because it does do like, it looks like it'll affect all the factories and locations versus just a certain region. And then smuggler skills, I did prioritize this one because some of these perks in here have to do with increasing your takeover gains, right? So if you're doing hostile takeovers a lot, right? If you're not interested in the hostile takeovers that much, then this, if you're collecting your factories, you're claiming factories by other means, like the legendary heists or the buyouts only, right? This isn't as big of a deal. But once you get to the end of this, you can see like you get a 40% boost per ship that you destroy during the hostile takeover, right? So if you do end up in like a competitive situation where like you have another player trying to do the hostile takeover with you, that would give you a little bit of an edge, because you'd get a little bit more percentage over them, unless they've got it upgraded too. But then even so, like even if most people don't want to do PvP for the takeovers. I see people leave them all the time when I join them. It just makes it go faster then, right? If you're doing them solo, nobody else shows up, it just makes it go faster, which is just convenient too. And then the rest of these all have to do with basically like they're faction based, right? So I'm going to do these last probably. But as you get all the locations sort of unlocked and stuff like that, you can go in here and give you just like, these small percent boosts to like production costs or profits or, production, it's just all like sort of just random stuff that just increases everything, right? Like makes it cheaper, makes you produce 8s faster, right? Like all of that kind of stuff. So it's just like 7 different weird ways to say that. So I'm going to do those last. I'm going to focus on getting the factories unlocked, and I'm focusing on whichever ones are more convenient, right? And then I have earned some Helm leases from like the Smuggler's Pass and stuff like that as you progress through the season. And so I was kind of cherry picking ones where like, oh, I only need one more factory in this territory to have the territory claim to get the production bonus, right? So pick and choose, there however you wish, but that's kind of what I did. And then, yeah, like I said, these ones that are super easy and like convenient that I drive by a lot, right? I upgraded those first instead of ones that, might be more profitable, just because like at the end of the day, it all changes once you start getting factoring upgrades in and stuff too. So you may even choose incorrectly, right? Like it just wasn't worth me trying to spend tons and tons of time trying to figure out which one's going to be the most profitable. And then if it's out of my way, right, if I don't visit it or a lot or something, then it's like kind of a waste to have that one. So I picked ones based on convenience for early on in the season, and then I end up unlocking all of them like throughout the season anyway, and then maxing out all the upgrades anyway, so then I don't, and then it doesn't matter, right? So so that was my strategy. I went based on what's going to be more convenient, what's easier to get to, and those are the factories that I sort of unlocked, right? So, but yeah, you could go around and look and see which ones have the better like starting production rates, and then upgrade those first. But then, like I said, once you start getting territories claimed, and then all those upgrades that are in the Helm office, right? And then you're getting bonuses for trade routes, right? Like, so it's tough to tell which ones end up being the best until you actually get all those upgrades and stuff completed, right? So I know first season, these ones along the coast of Africa here were huge just because they had all these trade routes. And so when I went into second season, I prioritized getting a lot of those particular ones along the coast of Africa. And then it ended up being that a lot of the factories over in the East Indies seemed to be the most profitable, just based on how they, how the developers sort of tweaked some of the like upgrades and perks and territory changes and stuff, right? So, yeah, so that's why I'm like, all right, like sometimes you can kind of tell which ones are going to be good, but I'm like, I'm going to unlock the ones that are more convenient, right? So that's going to be our video for Pieces of 8 and our starting out for Season 3 strategy, right? Thank you guys so much for watching all the way through here. Please make sure you are following the channel. I really do appreciate you guys. And then, yeah, any other suggestions or comments or anything, make sure to leave a like and a comment. That'll help out. If anything's anything I missed and somebody comments, I usually end up pinning that one, right? So, but yeah, more Skull and Bones videos coming in the future. Thanks a lot, guys. See you next time.